Well, job number one here in Indiana was working with farmers. Imagine you're here in Knox County, you open up your local newspaper one day, the Soil Conservation District and the Civilian Conservation Corps will be working with area farmers on soil conservation measures, erosion control, fertilization, so forth. Come on down to the Soil Conservation District office and sign up for free assistance on your farm. Well, not every farmer took them up on it, but a lot of them did. They came down, signed up their name. A week or so later, a truck pulls up with a soil conservation officer, someone from the camp, and a couple surveyors, CCC boys who surveyed your property. They walked your property with you. You pointed out your gullies, your needs, your irrigation issues, your land quality issues. And they go back to camp and create a topographical map for your farm. And they identify all the projects. Well, we've got a half dozen gullies over here to repair. We're going to move this fence over here. We're going to terrace this hill. This soil's too far gone. We're going to plant some, yellow pine on that property. We're going to plow this field. We're going to sweeten it with limestone. We're going to build a pond over here. Seriously, they just make a list of all these things. And then a couple weeks later, a truck pulls up with 15, 20 young men. And they're going to be on your farm every day for the next 2 weeks or 2 months. As I said, this fellow over in Daviess County, they built 5 miles of terraces on 60 acres. They built a spillway by the pond. They put in new fencing with concrete posts to hold the posts. They did wonderful work. The only thing you paid for was the fencing material itself. But they provided all the labor. Now the second thing they did was they brought in speakers. And every town had an auditorium, and they brought in these soil conservation officers who had slideshows, and they talked about crop rotation, strip farming, fertilizing techniques, all the latest. The government was experimenting, on these things. And the third thing they did was to take people on field trips to see active drainage projects. You've all heard of Elwood, Indiana? This is from an Elwood paper from April of '35. And this could have been here in Washington. George Poole, the engineer of the Frankton CCC camp, has arranged a tour to visit 5 active drainage projects, as well as inspection of the CCC camp. The general public is invited to attend. The first stop would be to see a dragline project on the Burt Leonard farm. They use drag lines to clean out ditches. The next stop will be to see a concrete bridge and head wall construction project on the Lawrence Hester farm, a quarter mile from Frankton. Lunch will be served at the camp. A spoil bank leveling project using a Caterpillar tractor will be seen in operation on the Leonard Luce farm. The next stop will be in Summitville to see the largest tile reconstruction project in Indiana, laying a 22-inch reinforced concrete tile drain. The last stop will be to demonstrate ditching by dynamite. They always save the best for last, okay? You don't want to miss that. So it really was a 3-pronged effort. Boots on the ground, working with farmers, bringing in speakers, and taking them on field trips. And so they had a huge impact all across Indiana to restore that soil and nurture it. Probably the most visible thing they did in the state were the state parks. Brown County, McCormick's Creek, Turkey Run, Clifty Falls, Versailles, Pokagon, these beautiful parks. And so what does that mean? Well, oftentimes the PWA, Public Works Administration, would build the roads. This was government money going to private contractors to build the roads. But the cities pretty much built everything else. They built the shelters, the bathhouses, the changing cabins. And they were required to use local materials, which meant they quarried stone. If I was in Pennsylvania, they used river rock. If I was in Michigan, granite. Indiana, of course, limestone, sandstone, sure. So they quarried the stone, but they put it in the hands of stonemasons, okay? In my book, I tell the story how he quarried the stone, he shaped and faced it. He put it in the hands of Mr. Koski, this Finnish stonemason. It's perfect, Mr. Koski. He took it. He tapped it very lightly with his hammer. Now it's perfect. It's not perfect till I say it's perfect. They had carpenters, surveyors, welders, plumbers, electricians. These are buildings, So these men were called local experienced men, and they paid them $40 a month. They lived at home, and they came into the camps to work with these men on building these buildings and structures. Because when you go to a park and you see a little plaque built by the CCCs, you don't give a blueprint to a bunch of 19-year-olds, from Indianapolis, They had adult supervision. And there were over 250,000 local experienced men in the country. And that was a real lifeline to a lot of people. If you go to these shelters, look up at the beams. Sometimes you'll see axe marks. You don't teach a 17-year-old from Vincennes, how to square up a log, using a broadaxe. Those were old lumberjacks or Swedish immigrants. So the quality of workmanship is just so outstanding. They're really built well, and that's why they're on the National Historic Registry. Now the carpentry work, they had their own carpentry shops, so they built the picnic tables, the park benches, the signage. And if you go in those shelters, look at the lanterns. All the lamps in those shelters are original for each camp. No two are alike. No two state parks have similar lamps or fixtures, door hardware. Those were all crafted by the blacksmith. And these young men were working in the carpentry shop. They were working with the blacksmith as apprentices, so they were learning skills. They built the hiking trails, the overlooks, the lookout towers of Brown County, the toboggan slides up at Pokagon. These wonderful things we take for granted, these young men were creating. And for many years later, they would always come back to their state parks and look at the work they did. They were so proud of it.